How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Amityville Emanuelle. This came out in 2023, was directed by Louis DeStefano, and stars Dawn Church, Shane Ryan Reid, and Allie Perez. And I guess before we get too far into it, I should explain the gimmick that goes on with this movie. It's basically a dual mockbuster crossover. For those of you guys who don't know, in recent history, people figured out that because Amityville was a real place, anyone could set their movie there and put the word Amityville in the title, even if they weren't affiliated with the Amityville horror franchise. So yeah, there's been a ton of Amityville mockbusters, this film included, but this was not actually a super new concept, as way back in the 70s, the movie Emanuelle came out, and Emanuelle was a very popular adult thriller, and people realized that if they named their main character Emanuelle, well, you can't copyright a name. They could make their own adult thrillers and put the word Emanuelle in the title. So yeah, between these two movies, we had very similar things happening, so why not combine them and make Amityville Emanuelle? And I have to say, it surprisingly works out on the Amityville side of things. We actually do get references to both the DeFeos and the Lutzes, and we actually acknowledge the Amityville lore, which is something that surprisingly not a lot of Amityville movies do. Some of them barely, if at all, reference the town, and that's it. So it was nice to see them actually talking about Amityville. The problem is Emanuelle, and to do an Emanuelle mockbuster, you really need two things. Name a character in the movie Emanuelle, and make it about sex. And to be honest, they kind of failed at both of these. And the first one really surprises me. How hard is it when you're writing a script to just name one of the characters Emanuelle? But unless I missed something, I didn't see a single character in the movie with that name. So who knows what happened there? Was this not originally supposed to be an Emanuelle movie? I don't know. But second, and this is where things get kind of awkward, the second requirement is it's supposed to be about sex, and this movie does talk about sex, but that's about it. The original Emanuelle was rated X, and this movie, according to Tubi, is rated TV-14. Get ready for a lot of awkward underwear shots and cutting away when a scene gets started. And to be fair, I've said this before, if you don't want to make a dirty movie, that's fine. You don't have to make a dirty movie, but if that's the case, don't write a dirty movie. If you're not comfortable making Amityville Emanuelle, make Amityville Bruce Lee or something, you know, do what you're comfortable with, don't make things awkward. But yeah, this movie, when it comes to the sex, which is apparently what they're trying to sell it on, it's just weird and clunky and awkward, and really, a lot of the movie is that way. This is one of those movies where the acting feels more like line reading. When you have an actor that does kind of swing for it, like there's a mysterious old woman character and there's the ghost of Ronnie DeFeo Jr., they do try to be a little over the top, but boy does it not work. None of the scares in this movie come off as scary in any way, and honestly this movie, the whole thing seems strangely inconsequential, like we're just watching a series of events slowly plodding along, and to be fair, stuff actually does happen in this movie. It's not the worst Amityville movie I've seen, but it's just this short little movie. It's a little over an hour. It plods along in kind of an awkward fashion. It doesn't really feel like it's doing much, and then when you get to the end, it's just kind of over really quick. Like, what they decide to do to beat the ghost is surprisingly simple, and then we're just done. So yeah, awkward and inconsequential, not really a great combination, but whatever. It's far from the worst Amityville movie I've seen, but nowhere near a recommendation. But that being said, what's the movie about? I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want to talk a bit about the setup in order to break down and analyze a few things, because there are a few kind of interesting things in here. So from here on out, let's take a bit of a deeper dive. We open up with Ronnie DeFeo Jr. getting arrested after the Amityville murders. We see a bunch of sirens and a close-up of his face, and he doesn't look like he's doing too good. So I do like that. I do like that we set up saying, hey, this is Amityville, this is the lore, we're actually doing it. Okay, that's cool. And then we cut to the present day, and the story is kind of divided by two sets of characters, a Lutz side and a DeFeo side. On the Lutz side, we get this woman. She works for an advertising agency and recently got a big bonus. And because of this bonus, she decides to buy a house. No, it's not the Amityville house. That would make too much sense. It's just a new house in Amityville. But shortly after she arrives, a mysterious old woman shows up and gives her a box of her father's things. Her father being George Lutz, who had recently passed away, and this woman was one of his associates. The old woman explains a few things, and get ready for this setup. It turns out George Lutz was secretly a cultist who bought the Amityville house on purpose, and over the course of his rituals would actually buddy up to Ronald DeFeo Jr., and instead of just an innocent haunting, it turns out he was playing with magic and got in over his head. Well, after George Lutz dies, he arranged for Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s ashes to be delivered to his daughter, and now she kind of has the ashes of not only a stranger but a murderer, and she doesn't know what to do with them. However, the ashes have a strange effect on her and cause an increased sex drive. Yeah, that wasn't really part of the Amityville murders before, but apparently Ronald DeFeo's ashes just do that for some reason. Okay. And it is worth noting, yeah, she's a Lutz, which you don't usually get in Amityville mockbusters. For those of you guys who don't know the deal, the DeFeo murders are true crime. They really happened, and Amityville is a real place. Anyone can go there. You can use all that in your movies, but the story from the Lutzes that was collected by Jay Anson in the Amityville horror novel and then turned into the movies, you're not supposed to touch that. Those are still copyrighted. But I guess since all they're using is the name and not the story, I guess that's enough to kind of skirt around copyright law. We'll see if anything ever happens with this, but cool to see the Lutzes in a new movie, even if it is this weird and bizarre concept that's completely different. Well, after that, we get the other set of characters, and it's a guy who's the son of Ronald DeFeo Jr. He has a girlfriend who notices that he's been really upset and sad lately, and he spills the beans and explains that he's the son of the guy who did the Amityville murders. That really weighs on his mind, but also his father passed away in prison recently, and now he's literally seeing his ghost haunting him, and he doesn't know what to do about that. And when we're talking about the Amityville case, I'm fairly certain that DeFeo Jr. never had a son, and I also think he's still alive. I'm not 100% sure about that, but again, we're making a fictional movie. We can do whatever we want. So now we have a daughter from the Lutz family and the son of Ronald DeFeo Jr. They're both being haunted and paranoid by DeFeo's ghost, and they have to eventually come together, figure out what's going on, and figure out how to stop the ghost. And as I said, this movie has a strange way for everything to just feel inconsequential and plotting. The scares aren't super big, so I wasn't terrified or on the edge of my seat the whole time. Whenever they try to do something either scary or sexual, it lacks any form of impact, and the actors all kind of doing the whole line reading instead of acting thing. It was hard to get invested. The movie did have a plot, it did move, and thank goodness it's short. There never really seemed to be anything to get me hooked or invested, and it just kind of felt like a weird episode of a soap opera? So yeah, kind of a weird movie here. It just plods along to its inconsequential little ending, and like for real, when you see how they defeat the ghost, you'll be like, really, you couldn't come up with anything better? But whatever. As I said, I've seen way worse Amityville films, but this was just shockingly flat and underwhelming. But whatever, it is what it is. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, subscribed. Thank you, you really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Amityville playlist. If you guys want to see me talk about other Amityville movies, feel free to check them out right there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.